All right, how's everybody doing today? We have a guest with us. Our guest is Ariana. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. So, how long have you been practicing magic for?
Since 2006.
Okay, so about 15, 17 years then? That's a decent
Yeah.
amount of time. And what got you interested in the first place?
Um, just I wanted to make changes and I wanted to do something outside of the box. I mean, I grew up in South Georgia, the Bible Belt, and I
Okay.
just always felt like magic was real, like you could really do something with it. But growing
Mhm.
up so strict, I could never, you know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
just weren't allowed to step outside of the box, and I just wanted to see what I could do on my own.
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with that. I grew up in my dad's side of the family was Christian and my mom's side was Catholic. So there was none of that until I was well, there was some of it, but it wasn't allowed to happen. I did it sort of in secret until I moved out of the house. So
Yeah, I mean there was stuff I did that I didn't even know that's what it was, you know what I mean? I think sometimes you just do it naturally.
uh-huh. Yeah, a lot of us when we reflect on our childhoods, we were doing magic without even realizing it.
Right, yeah.
So what are some of
They
your
would
favorite
say we
types
were
of
using our imagination, but I think we were really doing magic.
I think imagination is a huge part of magic, and I think to
Exactly.
discount it as just a simple child's thing is a mistake.
Right, I do too. I think it really
Mhm.
cuts off from what you're connected to.
Absolutely. So, what are some of your favorite types of magic to do?
I like prosperity
Okay.
and love. I actually like to do a lot of helpful magic, believe it or not. But a little bit of necromancy. Like, I kind of dip into all, you know, pretty. But
Well-rounded.
I would say prosperity and love are my favorite.
It's I was just speaking with somebody earlier and I was saying that I think people would be surprised how many left-hand path practitioners are helping other people constantly.
Right, right.
So, what are some of your least favorite types of magic to do then, if you have any?
I don't. I mean, I don't think I really have any. It was hard. I had something very traumatic happen to me as a child in a graveyard.
Mm,
So it really scarred me from doing necromancy type work for a long time. So I
I
had
can
to
see that.
overcome that. But now I'm comfortable with it. But that was probably not the hardest thing, but at least favorite. I don't guess I really have one. I just have certain blocks that I had to get pushed through.
I think we all have some blockages and some affinities. So that's okay. Um, how has magic changed your life for the better?
It's made me stronger and it's made
Hmm.
me feel independent. Like, you know what I
Ah,
mean? Like I don't have
uh-huh.
to depend on others. Like if I want something done, I can do it. It's up to me to get up and do it, but I can
Hmm.
do it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
absolutely. That's good. I think it's funny because a lot of people who aren't practitioners might scoff at somebody saying, "Well, magic helped me become independent," because they say, "Well, aren't you using other spirits and other entities to do your work for you?" And that is not at all what happens. The spirits and the currents, they want us to do just as much, and it's a
right,
lot. At the end of the day, we have to get the ball rolling, so to speak. Hmm.
right. Like, yeah, like it's more like they might like give you the map, but you still have to walk it. You know what I mean?
Well
Like
said.
you
That
still have to
very,
get there.
very well said. Yes. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's like they give us the vision or they give us the hearing to know what to do, but we still have to do it at the end of the day. Well said.
Right.
And what kinds of things influence you, or what sort of sculpted what magic meant for you growing up?
Growing up, as a child, when you met, like I was always playing in the woods. I was always,
Mhm.
I thought it was my imagination, but now looking back, I realized I was, talking to nature spirits, and I've always loved outdoors and just being a part of outdoors.
Me too. Me too.
I think that inspires me a lot. I went back to my childhood home a couple of years ago, and they'd cut down like all the trees around it, and it just broke my heart because I grew up in those woods, and I didn't realize how connected I was until I went back and saw, and I was just like, I mean, I really just cried.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's devastating. I mean, that would be like going and finding out that your childhood home had been demolished, or, one of your friends from your childhood had been killed, you know?
Right? Yeah, it broke my heart so bad. I was like, it just, and they didn't even do it like it was just piled up. It wasn't even like they didn't tear it down to build someone a home. Like I don't even understand the reasoning behind it. It just broke
Probably
my heart.
another apartment building or another business or
Well,
something.
I grew up way out on this farm, and so it's still a farm, but I
Hmm.
have no clue why they did that.
Man, that's such a tragedy. So you've mentioned how nature was somewhat of an influence for you. Are there any other influences, maybe other practitioners or maybe some literature that you've read?
Um, well, there's one thing I do want to talk about from my childhood too.
Hmm.
We grew up in this neighborhood that well, my grandma babysat me in this neighborhood that all the neighborhood kids would play together, and we had this. One of the kids' dads had like this shop where he would fix like lawnmowers and stuff. But on the side, he drew this huge dragon, and all the kids in the neighborhood got to paint the dragon.
Wow,
And that dragon,
that's
and to this
magical.
day, I went back a couple of months ago, and the dragon is still there and it just
Wow.
really like it really made you believe in like dragons, and especially as a kid because it seems so huge when you're like 5 years old looking up at this dragon. And to know it's still there, it just like it's still magical when you go look at it.
That is very cool, and it's magical that you were all working together to create that
Right.
that dragon. That's very cool. It's funny how things change as you get older, and how things that seem so big when you're a child are just sort of shrink as you get older. There's this park that I used to go to when I was a kid, and I used to get lost at this park when I was like 5 years old. I went
Yeah.
back when I was 20, and I could literally walk across it in 60 seconds. It's like, how
Yeah.
did I ever get lost at this park?
I know.
So what are some of your greatest strengths? I know you mentioned that you like to do love and prosperity magic, but is there something else that you find yourself really good at?
I'm I'm really good at baneful. Like
Mhm.
I am. Like that's something that will just flow out of me, especially when I'm like to that point.
That boiling
Like
point,
it
yeah.
just comes without me even thinking about it. Like it's
Mhm.
already there. And so I really hold back a lot. Like people don't realize. That's why I'll constantly say, back off, because in a minute I'm not gonna back off.
Yeah, yeah, and I can personally attest to your vision and your clairvoyance being a great strength as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, you did a circle reading. Well, I'm gonna back up. You weren't even doing a circle reading. You were just sort of scanning my energy. And I was in my study, and all of a sudden it was like, boom, like this pressure filled the room. And I was like, okay, somebody's here. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? And then we ended up talking later in the day, and I was like, were you reading my aura by chance? And you were like, no, I was just seeing what your energy was like. And then you read my aura, and it was one of the most intense interactions that I had had energetically with another practitioner. And we live 500 miles away from each other, if not more.
Yeah.
So I would say that your clairsentience and your clairvoyance is a pretty good strength of yours as well.
Well, thank you.
And so what are some of your weaknesses, if you don't mind, if just off the top of your head, if anything comes to mind?
I probably get too connected sometimes. Like my old
That's easy to
mentor
do.
would say, don't attach, stay detached. And I can't. I get so attached.
Yeah, you're very compassionate from what I've gotten to know you so far. So I could, and attachment isn't always a bad thing, but moderation in all
Right.
things, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah.
And what are some of your favorite entities or currents to work with currently?
Um, well, Azazel was the first that I ever worked with on the left-hand path, and he always would have that special place.
Oh yeah.
I love Belial,
Mm-hmm.
Abaddon,
Mm-hmm.
Amamon.
So yeah, those are some pretty heavy hitters you're naming.
Yeah, like those four are my guys. Now I got really, really sick with COVID. Honestly, I was about to die. And they just kind of showed up and started doing like color therapy on me. Azazel started touching me with like this red light, and they all had a different color light, and they would touch me with these lights. And I didn't even know what they were doing. And I was so sick, I didn't care. I just knew I trusted them. And when I was finally able to research it, like they were doing is color therapy.
That
And
is
yeah, I
very
mean, they're just,
intriguing.
yeah.
So you were just laying there. And some people might call that a fever dream, but I've experienced something very similar as well. I was hospitalized for a while, and I was seeing flashing light. I was seeing flashing colors, but I wasn't seeing. For you, was it like a laser that was scanning you, or how did
No,
that
it
appear?
was like a laser. It was like I could see Azazel by my bedside, and he was holding a red light, and he kept touching it to my body. And he was
Interesting.
first, and then the other three came, and they each had a different. Like one was green, one was yellow, and one was blue, and they were just like going in a circle, touching me with these lights.
Wow. That is, you're the only other practitioner I've ever heard talk about something similar like that. That it's something we're gonna have to talk about another time probably, because
Yeah,
I could probably ask you question after question about that.
right. That I mean that.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that blew me away when I was finally well enough to research it and figure out what was going on.
Yeah, it gave me chills down the back of my neck when you mentioned that, because it knocked me back into the hospital bed for a second.
Yeah. Oh,
What are some recommended practices that you could suggest for other practitioners and then at like an intermediate level, beginner level probably?
oh gosh. I mean,
Just off
you
the
can
top of your
always
head.
start off right. Like I started off with chakra work. Like
Mhm.
there was months that I just did a lot of chakra work. Like, I
That's
think that's
really
really
good.
important, and a lot of magicians want to discount it as it not being important or you don't need it, but I really think it sent me to the next level working with my chakras and meditation. Like I think that's where everyone needs to start at.
I agree. Energy work is so underrated, but so powerful. And I honestly, that probably has a lot to do with why your energy is so strong, because you've got it balanced and you've got it elevated to where you can actually utilize it in a practical way. That's awesome. I wish more people would talk about energy work when it comes to magic, but everybody's all mental. Um,
Right,
now,
yeah.
so when you are talking about like messing with chakras and stuff, were you like using like mantra and stuff as well, or was that just like visual?
Um, I do a lot of visual, but also it was like mantras. Like I had kept an app on my phone that would like you could set it for a certain time to do like the go through each chakra and that you know vibration for that chakra. And I did that for a long time,
Mm,
and that really helped.
mm. I like little apps like that and stuff. I have a couple of those on my phone. It's nice to just be able to set it and just sort of exist in it for a
Right,
minute.
like I could put my earbuds in with that app and go through each chakra and work on each one as long as I wanted to, and that really helped. I should
That's
probably do it
probably
again.
do that. That's awesome. Yeah, when I first started working with the chakras, I'm a musician, so when I first started working with them, I created my own frequencies, like not binaural, but sort of like ambient frequencies for that. And I should probably go back and listen to those too. Now that we're talking about this, I'm kind of wanting to go back to do that again too.
Yeah.
What are some difficulties? Like what's the hardest part about being a practitioner in your mind?
I don't know. I don't know if there. I mean, there are challenges. Like, there's
Sure.
definitely challenges, but that's what I like. So
It's
I
just a
don't
part of
really
it, right? Yeah.
right. So I don't. I don't know if I really know about. I know a lot of people struggle with like astral projection and stuff like that, but that always come really easy for me. So
Yeah.
I don't know what would,
So
because I live for the challenges.
what about the concept of silence and maintaining like a public persona as a practitioner? Do you find that difficult at all?
Sometimes,
Yeah.
but I mean, I get the silence, especially when you're working on something because you don't want
Mhm.
anything else to interfere.
Mhm.
But I think you also need to be out there so that others can learn, you know.
I agree. That's one of the reasons that I'm doing this, is so that I can try to help people who are struggling and lost, because so often there's plateaus in our development, and
Right.
those can be frustrating and some people just give up at that plateau, and I think that we owe it to ourselves to continue pushing through that adversity.
Right.
So how, I guess that is a segue to, how is magic viewed in your area? Is it pretty accepted, or is it frowned upon, or?
No, like it's not accepted. I'm in the Bible Belt. Like,
I figured that was going to be your answer.
no.
But it's funny though, because a lot of like Pentecostals and like Presbyterians, like when I go to services like that, I'm like, whoa, you guys got the fire. Like, I don't know if you know this or not, but you're doing sorcery.
Right. See, I grew up Pentecostal. And so,
There,
like, when they go
okay.
around anointing their members with oil, I'm like, dude, you're doing magic. I hope you
Or
know
talking
that,
in
but
tongues.
you just
Yeah.
don't call it that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I had some my stepdad's family was Pentecostal growing up. So seeing that, going from a Catholic service to a Pentecostal service, I was like, whoa, like what are these guys up to?
Right. Like, even Catholic here is kind of even frowned upon. Like, you have to be Pentecostal or Baptist. Like, that's your options here.
Okay, those are your options.
Maybe Methodist if you're
Yeah, Methodist,
like,
I get you too.
there's churches down here, you know, that believe in like handling the rattlesnakes. And if you get
I,
bit by a
mhm.
rattlesnake, you're supposed to just pray and you're going to get healed. Like, they don't believe in going to the doctor.
Yeah, I mean, they probably view it like it was an act of God, and if you believe in God enough, he'll heal you through the venom.
Right. And in the one verse in the Bible where Paul, he accidentally picked up a snake and so God healed him. So they really take that one verse way out of context and just.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens a lot in religions. People take metaphors fundamentally and cause themselves a lot of trouble.
Right.
So,
I
what are
mean,
some
you know,
ways? Go
they're
ahead.
good people. They just.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Um, a lot of times it's just a misconception or confusion, or you grow up hearing one thing and you believe that the rest of your life.
Right, right.
Hmm. Would you care to discuss the concept of magical attack and how to recognize some ways that you might be under magical attack yourself?
Well, there's a couple of things. Like, you can notice little things at first, like say your car breaks down, or your pet gets sick. Things like that should be, especially if, I mean, one random thing is not probably an
Sure.
attack, but if you have several things like that happen at once, you're probably under attack. Or if you all of a sudden feel really depressed,
Mm-hmm.
like, that could be an attack.
Mm-hmm.
There's warning signs that.
Yeah, it's normally something that is like extra. It seems to me like it starts away from you and then gets closer and closer and closer.
Right.
And like it's like I'm keeping tabs and I'm like, okay, one more thing closer to me and I'm throwing up some wards, or I'm doing a banishing. Now, how was
Right.
some
And
go ahead. I think we're on a little bit of a delay. I don't mean to keep interrupting you. Go ahead.
no, it's okay. That's one good thing about my circle readings, though, is I can
Mhm.
pick up on if a magician's about to be attacked. And
Mhm.
so I can give a warning, like, because I can see it. Like, I can see
Mhm.
stuff that's starting to go awry, or I can see where a magician might want to pick up their defenses. I
Mhm.
can tell that when I do a circle reading. So.
Yeah, that's one thing you told me. You said, please, 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 if I warn you that something is coming your way, do not ignore it. I
Please
appreciate
don't.
that. Yeah, I
I
appreciate
mean,
that.
because even if I'm wrong, all you do is beef up your security. You know what I mean? Then that
Yeah,
can never hurt. So I'd
absolutely.
rather be wrong and you do it than be right and you didn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like an umbrella. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Exactly.
So what are some ways that you can defend against magical attack if you feel that you're being assaulted by somebody?
Um, you know, there the main thing is to have your shielding and your protections up. And then because then you may not even have to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if it comes down to it, you know, you can always do a return to sender. You can
That's a good
always
one.
do, you know, depending on what it's like you can do something really mild, like a freezer spell, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you just, I mean, if the attacks get worse, then you get worse. I mean, it can turn into an all-out war if that's.
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite things to do is I'll just throw up my wards and like a mirror shield, and I'll just let them burn all their energy while I'm collecting all that, and then I'll get to work on them after they're tired,
Right.
after they've used up all their resources. Then it's time to get started.
Right.
So, how did you get into the discovery of your circle readings, and how did you discover how clairvoyant you were?
So before the Bog forum got the discourse stuff, but they had an old forum. Well, we all call it the old forum. And I was on there with a couple of people, but we would also go to this other forum that I don't even know is still around. I think it was called like Spells of Magic or something. But one of the magicians that was kind of going between both forums, like I just one day I just saw his circle, and it was one of the very rare circles that's not made of flames when I see it. It was a stone and then a mushroom, and it made it almost like a fairy ring, but there were stones in
Interesting.
between too. And that circle terrified me because it looked so innocent, but you know how most all mushrooms are poisonous. So like this is like the most deadly circle I've ever seen. But I just told him, I was like, I could see you, like I could see your circle, and I described everything. And then so he kind of went back and told the person that became my mentor, like, I don't know what he said about me, but anyway, I got in touch. And so then I just started practicing with the guy that I guess was my old mentor, and he would just let me constantly read his circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I
You
just
got
went
to
from
practice
there, and
that way.
I got where I could
Mm-hmm.
and just went from there. It just skyrocketed after that. You know, then I started practicing. I started reading other people's. But the first one just came naturally. I wasn't even trying, and sometimes it's still like that. Just the other day, I saw someone. I wasn't even trying to see them. You know, I was watching Vampire Diaries, so I'm like, well, I'm not trying to see you, but you're not going away, so I'm going to check this out. So
Yeah, it might have
sometimes
been
that
like an
happens.
omen. Yeah, yeah, an omen or some of some kind. Geez, it's been a long day.
Yeah.
So, when you talk about the other forum, for people who don't know, there's another forum where we actually met called the Occult Mirror. That is an excellent forum. There's so many different types of varieties of practitioners, so many different levels of experience as well.
Right.
It's such a great place, isn't it?
Right. There's beginners all the way up to very experienced. And they're a great group of people.
Yeah. I've been there for a few months now, and I have yet to experience any drama. I have yet to experience any, negative criticism that wasn't beneficial. It's kind of amazing. It's like a little oasis in the desert of the Left Hand Path community. Like everybody's like bickering and fighting with each other, and then you find this oasis, and it's like you're waiting for shit to break out, and it never does.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like what I call the old Bog forum. Like that's the way it was there. I really think, and this might just be me, but I really think when Bog started letting the advertisements be, I really think it let a lot of parasites in. Because to me,
Interesting.
that's when it started falling apart.
That's an interesting concept. So that is actually something that we haven't talked about on this channel yet, is the concept of parasites. Is that something that you would care to get into a little bit?
Sure, that'd be fun.
So how do parasites, do they have a certain appearance to you? Do they have a certain effect?
To me, the way I see them, they almost look like bugs.
Interesting.
Almost like grasshoppers or just certain kind of bugs, like big eyes and almost like stick bodies. That's how I see
Interesting.
most of them. And people who say they do not attack circles, I promise you they do, because I've
Who
seen
says
it.
that?
Like they will attack. Like a lot of magicians will say, "Oh, I don't cast a circle or whatever," and that's God. You really need to, because you have no idea what's attacking you. And I mean, for the little stuff, like if you're just doing a quick spell. But if you're doing something really big, like please cast a circle, because I've seen parasites just try to tear them down and get through.
I can imagine. Yeah, to me they look almost like slugs.
Yeah, I can see that too.
They're really nasty and gray, and like they look like leeches, I guess. They look more like kind of like a leech
Or
or a
you
slug
see them
to
like
me.
that. Yeah, I see them like usually I see them like just bugs, or there's this one huge one that looks like a troll.
Interesting. Does he have a name or
I just call
anything?
him a troll, but he's huge. I've actually had run-ins with him a couple times.
Well, so how did you handle that?
Okay, there's this one circle that I always see that's like out in the desert. It's a certain magicians, and I won't tell who because that's their privacy. But every time they cast a circle, these creatures come after him, and like I've actually had to fight them off before, and I just most of the time I end up calling Azazel to come help me, because it's almost like an all-out war.
So is it like that he's just channeling so much energy that they're drawn to it, or?
That I think so. It's like the minute the circle gets cast, like they're just there. They're just
Interesting. So it's interesting too, because I got an image of somebody in my mind. I won't say who it was, but as soon as you said that in the location, it was like I was literally standing there and I was looking right at him. So anyway,
yeah, and I think that it can take your toll. It can take its toll. You know what I mean? Like people should be very aware of parasites. And lots of times people think they're talking to a spirit. Like they'll think they're talking to Azazel or Abaddon. They're talking to a parasite. Like you have to be really careful.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's the first thing that I teach is unlocking the subtle senses. Because if you're performing magic and you can't hear or see what you're interacting with or feel what you're interacting with, you're setting yourself up for a world of hurt.
Right. I agree.
So parasites and just negative entities in general. Is there anything else that people should be watching out for in your mind?
Well, you always want to be protected against attacks and parasites. Those are the main ones. That you want to be careful for.
Okay. And normally the way that I handle parasites is just with energy work. Like I will either one time I did everything I could with my energy, lighting it up, putting myself on fire, like casting them out. And this one kept coming back. So I literally just took my Athame and just stabbed where I saw it on the ground. And it screeched and everything. Like it was almost deafening to like my like inner audience. And ever since then, I've just like every time I think about parasites, I'm just like, where's my Athame? Like, where's my dagger at?
Exactly.
I hate leeches and shit. I went swimming one time when I was a kid and I got out of the water and I had like probably 15 leeches all over me. And ever since then, I
Oh,
just
wow.
like fleas,
Oh, I
ticks,
can imagine.
mosquitoes, any kind of parasite, I'm just like, fuck off.
So it was kind of like, what was that movie, Stand By Me? Where
Yeah,
have you seen
yeah.
that movie? And they
Uh-huh.
got the
Uh-huh.
leeches on there. Oh,
Ugh,
that would be
gives me the
traumatic.
heebie-jeebies. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want to address or anything that you want to ask me while we still have some time?
Um, what got you into magic?
Well, I had a grandfather who was a ceremonial magician. He was an illusionist as well, and that's all I knew growing up. And he would always do these little magic tricks and stuff. And as a 5-year-old, that blew my mind and it altered my perception of reality. So I would always walk around the house trying to pull off my fingers and shoot lasers out of my hands like he could, and that just never really died. And then I dated a girl in middle school who was Wiccan, and so that was like the next level. And then when I was like 16 or 17, I started doing hallucinogens, so then that was like the next level. And then I found alchemy, and it was just like one step at a time, and next thing I know, it's been 20 years and I live and breathe this stuff and I can't get enough of it.
Oh, wow. You know, you talked about your granddad. That made me, mine was a Baptist minister,
Ooh.
but he was very like he would hang a horseshoe over his door for luck, and if he spilled
Ah,
salt at the table, even he did magic without realizing it, but he
absolutely.
thought he was superstitious, but I remember all that stuff. We couldn't open an umbrella in the house. And we couldn't walk
Uh-huh.
under ladders.
That's a big one. That's a big one. Yeah. Hmm. So it sounds almost like he knew what he was doing, but he was smart enough to recognize where he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of that. My grandma was sort of like that as well. Like she always had like a rosary on, and she would always like she'd do the salt over the shoulder thing. Like she was very religious, but it always seemed a little bit mystical to me growing up. Like
Yeah.
she
That's
would
the
talk
way
she
he
would
was.
talk to angels, and that wasn't weird to anybody. And I'm like, you're talking to angels like that? That's pretty mystical.
Yeah. My grandpa would have visions. So
Ah, okay. So I wonder if that's like a bloodline thing. Like I wonder if you got some of that, or if it's
I
just a coincidence.
my mom was very I don't know what you would call it, but like when she was married to my dad, his grandma got really sick, and she said, "You need to go see her tonight because you're not going to be able to." And he did go on
Interesting.
to see her, but then he got the phone call the next day that she had passed away, and he was like, "You knew, didn't you?" And she was like, "I just had a feeling." Like she would
Wow.
always just say she had a feeling, but
But it
she
was a
would know
premonition
stuff.
or an omen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Wow. It's amazing. It's almost like the gifts are changing like over time and with the generations, like it's getting stronger. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because we're dissociating from reality because of all of the trauma and all of the confusion, that we're just sort of like locking out, reality, and it's allowing our psychic capacities to open up. But I feel like there's either a lot more gifted people these days, or we're just more open about it. I'm not sure what it is.
I think we're becoming more open
Mm-hmm. Yeah, could very well
because
be.
like especially down here, like I said, growing up so strict with Christianity, you had to say, "Oh, it was just a feeling," or I just thought, from what the
Mm-hmm.
doctor said, but really you knew, like you had a psychic ability. But I think now that more people are openly,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not being afraid to say, "Hey, this is what I do." I think we're all just being more open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm leaning toward as well. And I think that there's just so many ways to talk about it. And especially like science is coming out with a lot of stuff that intermingles with magic, and
Oh
film
yeah,
and media is talking about all kinds of stuff. So I think that's probably helping a lot as well.
yeah, yeah. I do.
Well, I guess unless there's anything else that you want to talk about, I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head.
I think we've
Covered a
covered
lot of
it.
ground.
Yeah, we really
Awesome.
did.
Awesome. Well, guys, make sure that you check out her. You have a YouTube channel. Would you like to say the name of that channel?
Yeah, it's just Ariana Knight, Black Magician, so they can find it.
KNIGHT, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, so check out her YouTube channel. And guys, I'm telling you, her circle readings are no joke. If you are interested in that, get a hold of her. I'll put her email down in the description. And otherwise, thanks for coming on. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Well, thank you. I hope you do too.
Thank you so much. Maybe we'll have you on again in the future sometime if you're up for that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Anytime.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks again. It was good talking to you. I'll catch you later.
It's okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.